Seattle's bringing in the Rams passing game coordinator as their new OC. I mean, were the Rams that good? There it is. There it is. Are we good to go? Oh, we're good. Are we good to go? Cool.
I am dumb. Thank you, Tyrese, for calling me out on that. I'm glad that you called me out on that. But welcome, guys, to The Charge. I'll do that intro once again. This is your boy Bernie here, again, giving the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. And again, I am introduced by a good time friend and also analyst, Leah Johnson, or a.k.a. Logan. How you doing, Logan?
What's going on? What's going on? Thank you for having me, Mr. B-Mac. Nice haircut as always.
Yeah, just finally had to actually do the hair. It's been a minute since I've actually touched it up. But, with COVID times and all, it's getting a little crazy. But, how you doing, man? What's kind of been on your mind?
Bernie, outside of the golf course, not a lot has been on my mind when it comes to sports. But one thing that definitely just burst my bubble is when people talk about Lonzo Ball like he's this all-star.
Okay.
Explain to me how people think Lonzo Ball is a good player. That's something I definitely want to talk about off the top.
All right, we can talk about that, because we do know that right now there's actually trade rumors that, the Warriors are interested in him. Multiple teams are interested. The Knicks are interested in him. Lonzo Ball is one of those, I would say, enigmas that, has stemmed since the Big Baller brand and his dad just kind of went out and kind of proclaimed that all three sons would be in the NBA, that, Lonzo Ball would be better than Steph Curry. And it's just kind of carried on this sort of life and personality. But I don't think that I necessarily, the thing is, like, I've always seen him, and I will always say this to anybody that asks me about Lonzo, is that I always see him as a Jason Kidd. Like a guy that'll get the 12, 14 points with 11 rebounds and maybe 12 assists. Like, he's not one of these guys where I'm looking at him to be like the next Magic Johnson or the next, I would say, Steph Curry or anything like that, because that's just not his game. Like, his game is to get other people the ball and to get the ball movement going, which I think is a very underrated thing in the NBA, or very underrated thing in basketball in general. It's just getting the ball moved quickly, getting it from side to side, so you get an advantage of finding a mismatch from shifting guys so much to where it's like, oh shoot, we shifted everyone to the right, now we can go to the left and attack. And so from me and my perspective, Logan, I do get your frustration, because I think a lot of people that were on his jockstrap saw him as, I would say, like Magic Johnson even was on his jockstrap as well, calling him going to be one of the greatest Lakers, or his jersey was going to hang in the rafters. He was going to be one of the greatest Lakers. But this season, I would say he's been playing a little bit disappointing because of the way that Stan Van Gundy has kind of operated the offense, right? They've kind of decided to take the ball out of Lonzo's hands and basically make him an off-ball guard, which, if you've seen Lonzo play, the way that he gets going and the way that he's able to impact the team, impact the offense, is with him actually being in there to attack the offense, actually there to pass the rock. And it doesn't also help that you see here that there's so many point guards on the team as well. You got Eric Bledsoe. You got the guy that they drafted from Alabama. You got, I can't even remember. They have so many guards that, to be honest with you, it's just one of those situations where it is frustrating. But that's kind of from my perspective, to give you the long story short, I always saw him as a Jason Kidd. I never saw him as this sort of all-star, multiple-time all-star. But he might get one or two just because of the triple-double and how people kind of overrate that, in my opinion, especially like a low end triple double. You know what I mean by low end? Like basically, low amount of points, but
A
like
Draymond triple double.
the Draymond triple double. Even we even call it now the Ben Simmons triple double. So it's just
Ben
one of those
Simmons, I
things
like
that
it.
like I do get your frustration though with fans that do call him sort of like the next Magic Johnson or even Magic Johnson himself, right? Saying that he's like going to be the next great Laker.
Well, even the comparison to Jason Kidd, Bernie, is tough to say because you can't say he's going to be a multiple all-star caliber type of player like Jason Kidd was. That even I think is a stretch for me. The guy has regressed going into his third or fourth season. Which one is it?
Fourth, I believe. Yeah, fourth.
Fourth. And I 100% agree with you. He could pass the rock. 110%. You need the ball in his hands in order to do that. And he does a great job when doing so. But at the same time, how often can you put the ball into a guy's hands that can't score? And score consistently?
I mean, I do get what you're saying there, Logan. Like he does. I do get like the fact that that he does need to be able to score the rock when he's given the pass and everything like that. But for me, what I noticed with the offense is that basically Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson are bringing up the ball and basically doing their own thing with basically hoping that Lonzo will be a spot up shooter, which if you know and I know, that's just not his game. Like you watch him on the court, he's not active. He's not involved in the offense. Like he's a guy that needs the ball in his hand. He's almost like a Rondo in a sense where he needs to have the ball in his hands to be effective. And if you give him the ball in his hands and he's able to make these passes, able to go off pick and rolls, set guys up, because we see like every time that Lonzo has the ball in his hands, is able to go on a pick and roll with Zion Williamson, that's an easy bucket. That's an automatic bucket in from what I'm seeing when they finally do give Lonzo the ball, is like those are automatic buckets. But when you do see him kind of, off the ball, not really doing much, it affects him not only on the offense, but the defense. And I think Alvin Gentry really did get the best of him because he was having a career year before the pandemic hit. Like during that, like I believe, what was it, 64 games that they played? Like that was probably the best I've seen Lonzo play in the NBA in a long time. He looks stronger. The jumper's finally looking like a regular jumper. It's not looking like he's bringing it across his face to kind of shoot it. He's actually shooting it with basically a traditional look, traditional looking jump shot. And so, obviously this season, he's not living up to like the expectations of that growth and progression that I say I like to see. Cause I'm a guy that by year 3, I know what you are, but I still think that like, if you know who he is, that he's a guy that needs the ball in his hands, that he's a Rajon Rondo type of player where he needs to be able to use the rock effectively to score. Not for himself, mostly because he's not that great of a finisher, and I'll give you that. But with the ball in his hands, able to go off the pick and roll, give it to Zion, or dish it out across the court, like that's an automatic bucket. And so, to me, and what I'm seeing is that I really think that Lonzo is an effective player, but he's just in an ineffective system with Stan Van Gundy as the coach, which I have no idea why he's been given like another opportunity to ruin another franchise, in my opinion.
I mean, this is Lonzo's second team now where he hasn't been effective as a scorer.
And I do get you on that.
To put it on Van Gundy is kind of tough, but you mentioned that Zion brings the ball up, or BI brings the ball up, and in some cases Bledsoe brings the ball up. Outside of Bledsoe, by the way, there's really not another guard on that team. I don't know who the rookie is that they drafted. But looking over that team, I didn't see another backup. That's the only thing that scared me about hearing and reading about those Lonzo trade talks, is that they don't have another guy that could fill in. Not that they need one to fill in for Lonzo, but at the end of the day, I don't think Lonzo is a starter in the league. And just because of his inability to score. And I say his inability to score because you mentioned who a guy is by year 3. Well, this guy's a bust, and it's pretty evident at this point. He's come through with the passing, sure. That's pretty translatable going from NCAA to NBA. But the scoring is where it didn't translate, and shooting 40% from three in college to 20 some in the NBA, that's regressing. And picking a guy second overall who's going to do that, I think you have to label that guy a bust. I don't think he should still be a starter in the league, regardless of what type of role he needs to be playing with this team. His role is not to be a starter. And so he should be welcoming a trade, I think, in my opinion, because it's obviously not working out with the Pelicans.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you with the last point that he does need to get off this team because, I not that I'm saying that like Lonzo, like I said, before the trade line, I wasn't like thinking, or sorry, before the season, I wasn't thinking that he was going to be, or like before he came in the league, I wasn't thinking that he was going to be some sort of like Magic Johnson or, anything remotely close to that. I think, I kind of said that his ceiling could be Jason Kidd just due to the fact that I know that he's one of those guys that could score the rock like an effective rate. I mean, 3-point shot is his thing, but obviously this season it has not worked out too well. And he does need to work on that. I'm not saying that like all the blame should be put on Stan Van Gundy. I'm not saying all the blame should be put on the Pelicans, but I just think that for each player, like if you don't let them like fulfill that role or like let them kind of work on that role that they've been, basically working on since they were a kid, I would say it is frustrating coming from Lonzo's perspective to see that like, you were a guy that was, scoring the rock. You were a guy that was, dribbling and, basically setting up the team with your playmaking and all that other stuff to now basically being a poor man. Like you're trying to like kind of convert him into a JJ Redick when he's obviously not that type of player. Like he's shooting 29% from 3-point right now. That is absolutely god awful, and I will give it to you on that. Like he needs to step up because if he's not going to be able to shoot that, in the near future, that's going to be, I would say, in trouble. But I could also make the same argument for a guy like Ben Simmons. Like, do you think that Ben Simmons is a bust?
No, because they have two completely different games. Ben Simmons wasn't an advertised shooter in college like Lonzo was. Ben Simmons was a scorer. He'll score anywhere within that perimeter, but he likely won't shoot it from outside. And that's how he was advertised. I mean, people knew what they were getting when you were drafting Ben Simmons. With Lonzo, you had a ton of upside. He had all this potential that he has yet to even, scratch at. And if that's maybe because he's only 23 and he maybe needs 3-4 more years, sure, I'll give him that. But for the time being, I'm looking at the guy like this is a major bust. That was a huge mistake, and I'm sure the Lakers are happy that they got rid of him. Because this guy is, like you say, he's not consistent shooting from three like he was in college. Shooting from anywhere, rather.
Yeah, I mean, like I do think that his dad kind of overhyping him as like a Steph Curry obviously was a reach, and I do get the point that like that Lonzo Ball is like, obviously he's been disappointing this season, and I just think that like most of it falls on Van Gundy, but also a little bit has to fall on Lonzo because eventually, you do have to make these shots. And so I do get that, but at the same time, I don't think that Stan Van Gundy has really put Ben Simmons, or sorry, I keep wanting to say Ben Simmons because I'm looking at his player stats because I was comparing the two players. But you do have to put a little bit of sort of, I would say, blame on Van Gundy because look, I mean, LeBron James, I feel like, is the only player, maybe even, I would say, I'm trying to think who else in this league, like maybe Luka to some extent, but mostly like LeBron James is someone that you could, like, basically the system is him. But with Lonzo and these other players that are coming in the league, and I get your point of like the number 2 pick should be a guy that's able to do everything. Like this is going to be like your next superstar, quote unquote, player because, he's drafted so high. This is supposed to be the guy that's supposed to change your franchise and all this other stuff. But if we look back in that draft, I mean, obviously Jason Tatum was obviously the number 1 pick in that draft if we had to redo that draft. And I think there's a lot of more players in there. I think Donovan Mitchell, I think, was in that draft as well. I mean, there's so many more players. Like, I'm not saying that Lonzo Ball should have been number 2. Like, obviously there's way better players than him. But I still think that there's a role for him in this league. And I still think that he can get to that Jason Kidd-esque level. Now, will it be a Hall of Fame career for him? Probably not. I think that he's going to be like in that category of like we'll remember him in the years past just because of the big baller brand and those type of things. But I do think that he could be a decent player in the future. Like he could be like a Rondo where like, and maybe that's kind of disrespecting Rondo a little bit, but maybe like a poor man's Rondo where, he's basically the starting point guard, but he's not going to be a guy that, is going to be special in terms of giving you, the points and giving you like, 20 points a game and other things like that. He's going to be a guy that I think will give you a solid 12 to 14 points a game. And he's kind of proven that right now with the way that he's playing. But I do agree with you, Logan, that it has been disappointing to see Lonzo kind of regress from where he was at even just last year. And it sucks because he obviously had a bad bubble in the post, or you can call it postseason, but like the bubble season. And it looks like it's carried over to this season. So I do agree with you in that perspective, Logan, that it has just been all in all a bad season for Lonzo. And I think a change of scenery would do a guy like Lonzo good.
Yeah, and that can easily kind of take us to that next point of where he would ideally be fit. But going back to your point on that 2017 draft, though, Bernie, there were a lot of busts, I have to admit, in that draft. I mean, looking back, you're right. After Tatum, you can mention De'Aaron Fox, but there were a lot of busts. So, I mean, I get you. But to see Ball, like you said, just regress, that's what just kind of irks me every time people still think that the guy deserves a shot. I just think that based off of what we've seen, it's enough. But change of scenery might help. Where are you thinking? Give me some teams here.
So some teams that I saw that were interested in him, if we look at some of I know that the Warriors are looking at him. I think for some reason the Warriors are still trying to look for that like that third superstar to kind of complement a guy like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, which I think is probably duly needed. But I don't think that that's necessarily the best place for him. I mean, it could be technically with the ball movement, the way that Lonzo plays, that could actually not be a bad shout. The question is now they also want to trade JJ Redick along with him, and that's going to cause a lot more problems because his contract's, I believe, a 2-year, $26.5 million deal, which Jeez. I don't know why people are signing. Like he's not the same JJ Redick that he was maybe even 2 or 3 years ago. And so because he's now included in these trade talks, it's just going to be tough to try and move him. And before I kind of continue moving here, we have Tyrese saying that he's not a scrub. He can play, but not an all-star by any means. And he can play pressure defense on a point guard. I honestly would trade Kemba to the Pelicans for him. Wow. So you think that the Boston Celtics should trade Kemba for him? I mean, I'm not saying because, I do like Lonzo, but at the same time, I think Kemba, I think he still provides a little bit more than I think Lonzo Ball at this point. We don't need like a tall guard at this point. What we need is a big man. Yeah, the Jays will flourish. Okay, Tyrese. I mean, I get your point. I get what you're trying to say. But ultimately, I would say no. I mean, I get then you say no, Kemba can't play defense, but at the same time, I think defensively we're a solid unit. I just think that, again, what we really need is a big man that can score the rock. Sabonis would be like the number one. I'm still going to be rooting for that Sabonis trade. I'm trying to speak into existence, but it's probably looking more null and void than ever before. But just to kind of go back to your point, Logan, I mean, I do think that maybe even like the Knicks. Hey, Yoy, how you doing? But I do think the Knicks could also be an interesting team, Logan, to add Lonzo Ball to that team. Because I think that with Mitchell Robinson, get the ball out of RJ Barrett's hands so he doesn't shoot like 1 for 17 every other game, might actually help the Knicks. I mean, they're winning, to be fair. I mean, they're doing a tremendous job. So, but I think that Lonzo does have that Tom Thibodeau vibe about him where he's going to be a hard-nosed defender, but also, needs to work on the jumper. And so I think that you could definitely see that being a possibility with a guy like Lonzo and Tom Thibodeau as his coach.
So I think Lonzo is going to get... The issue I have with Lonzo getting traded to a team where he's going to get benched is his confidence. It's going to go down just... it's gonna get lost, and we are seeing it currently happen as a starter. So if he does get put onto the bench, after getting traded twice now, it's gonna kill his confidence. He's gonna need a situation where he's still, within that spotlight in order to thrive, because otherwise, how effective is he actually gonna be?
No, I get what.
Plus,
Yeah, I get
you
what you're
got
saying.
RJ too that you're trying to develop into that point guard position. You have Austin Rivers, who's just been balling out. How is Lonzo going to fit into that team though?
I mean, even if you want to look at, like, if we look at the stats for the Pelicans, even this year, Logan, I don't know if you can see on my screen or not. Maybe I'll send this link to you.
I'm watching.
That you can take. But I mean, look at where the Pelicans are ranked so far in like wins, losses, and really more so, like, I would say the points. Because I mean, if we look at the bottom of the league, they are dead last in almost every category besides like free throws attempted and free throws made. Like, you look at their offensive rating, like, this to me is an offense that I think Stan Van Gundy is trying to makeshift them into something that that is his system. And realistically, he should try and he should try and build the offense around the players and not like around his own system. Like,
Well, they definitely don't have an offensive-minded team. They don't have many threats on offense.
Yeah, basically it's just, Brandon Ingram, create your own shot, or Zion, go to the hole and attack. And that's obviously not going to work. Like, that's going to be one of...
and you're also relying on Steven Adams. It's like, that's your scoring center. I mean, Jackson Hayes hasn't developed much either.
Yeah.
It's not an offensive team. I get you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. And we got here Tyrese. Why do you think Brad sat Kemba out when Tatum came back? It's not rehab on knee. He knows he will F the flow up. Nobody wants Kemba, to be honest. He's damaged goods. And Eoy, how you doing, man? Lonzo on the Knicks would make them a legit playoff team, probably 7th or 8th seed. I already think that the Knicks are kind of teetering on a playoff spot. Like, at the end of the season. Because obviously right now I think they're somewhere in there. But I don't know, man. It's one of those things where I'm not sure if I believe in. And I get what you're saying, Tyrese, about Kemba Walker, but I still think that he still doesn't want to push him too far. We can probably go into a Kemba Walker talk in probably a little bit later in the stream. But going back to the Lonzo thing, Logan, my girlfriend says, "Hey, what's up, Logan?"
What's up, Gabby? Shout out, Gabby. Golfing like a pro out there.
Yep, golfing like a pro out there. But if I had to pick another team, Logan, to be honest with you, I honestly think it's either Golden State or the Knicks that could use him. But I think I'm leaning more towards I'm leaning towards the Warriors being the team that could use him. And I know that's kind of crazy to say because you have Steph Curry, but if you just use, I guess to be fair in all of this, like, can you do much worse than Kelly Oubre is right now? I mean, Kelly Oubre is not playing to the standard that he was in Phoenix. And maybe he's kind of exposing himself when he does play like this. You know what I'm saying?
Can you do worse? Yes, you could do worse. You could do Lonzo Ball. That's worse.
I mean, let's look at their stats. I mean, let's look at Kelly Oubre's stats. Let's look at his stats and see what we're looking at here with Kelly Oubre and what he's looking at right now. 11.6 points per game. Definitely not good. Like that.
Are we looking at? Sorry, the stream's a little delayed here. So are we looking at the season? Or are we looking at his career?
Looking at the season.
Okay, so this on a brand new team, brand new system.
So I mean, the same thing could be said about Lonzo. He didn't play with Stan Van Gundy last year. He played. These two guys are basically playing in the same system.
Lonzo sucked on the Lakers.
He sucked on the Lakers, but that was a different system. Just like Kelly Oubre is playing in.
That's what I'm saying. But so if you look at his overall stats, I mean, he sucked on both teams. It's not like he's good on the Pelicans either. So I mean, I'm just looking at his entire career.
I mean, right now, Kelly Oubre is shooting 21% from the 3-point land. That's terrible. And you don't really get much from him other than maybe 5.5 rebounds, which isn't that good. You're getting 1.2 assists, which is definitely not what you want from your star point or, even shooting guard, quote unquote. So I think both of these guys are basically in the same boat, to be honest with you, Logan. I think both these guys are trying to find a system, trying to find something to get themselves, going. And I think maybe a change of scenery even for Kelly Oubre, because I don't think Kelly Oubre is a guy that, maybe he does live up to I would say like the expectations, especially coming from Phoenix where everyone was like, yes, this guy is going to be good with the Warriors. He's going to be great. But he doesn't play the style that the Warriors want. And I think that if you were to trade those two, I think you could potentially see like both of those players kind of lifted up because of the trade. Because Van Gundy's looking for anybody to create offense. And I think the way that Kelly Oubre plays, I think that helps him create more offense for a guy like Brandon Ingram rather than a guy like Lonzo, who's obviously not good at creating his own offense for himself.
I agree with you. I think a swap of those two players would be ideal if it actually measured up in value. Obviously, it doesn't. But, going back to Kelly Oubre, this is my boy, right? Phoenix guy. So even going back to his days, though, in Washington with the Wizards, the guy in every single year of his career has upped his points per season or per game each season. Going from 3 to 6 to 11, 12, all the way up to 18. That's progress. That's going the right way that you want to. You look at his rebounding totals, gone up. His assist totals, gone up. I mean, the guy is improving each year he's in the league. That's the difference between him and Lonzo, is that Lonzo's going the opposite direction. And yes, they're both in a similar situation, meaning that they're on new teams. But Lonzo has also been in New Orleans for a year already. And he's still doing poorly. This is Oubre's like 15th, 20th game with Golden State, and he's doing bad. Sure, give him a pass because he's done well in every other team that he's played with. But put him on a new team, I'm sure you're going to get that production from Oubre again. I can't say the same thing about Ball, which is why you can't just make that swap straight up. It's just not a fair trade.
Well, I think for me, like when I look at Lonzo Ball stats and kind of like he's been progressing as well too. I'm not saying that he's like on the same trajectory just because we see here that Lonzo's only played 4 seasons compared to the 5 or 7 by Kelly Oubre. I mean, Kelly Oubre obviously has progressed each and every time, but just like Lonzo, you hit a blip. Like, he got 16 points per game when he was in Phoenix, that first couple games, and in Washington he was at 12.9. Like there's blips in here, and even this year, like this is a blip year, just like it is a blip year for Lonzo. Like from years past, we see Lonzo improve tremendously. I mean, his points per game is the highest this year. Obviously, the turnovers is not his best. He's at 2.5. His worst was actually last year at 3.1. Assist total, not his best as well because he's at 4.7. But at the same time, you're seeing some sort of progression. I mean, free throws, obviously 58 is terrible. But his 2-point field goal percentage is up. You're seeing him take a lot more attempts at the rim. You're seeing a lot more attempts at threes, even though they're not going in at this point. But I think that there is some like nitpicking here and there that we could do about both these guys, right? I can make the argument that right now Lonzo's not playing in the preferred position, which is basically having the ball in his hands to make plays for people. Kelly Oubre is not in his best position either. Like Kelly Oubre isn't a guy that likes to do a lot of ball movement, we see Steph Curry kind of moving around, kind of, basically, looking like he's chasing around, like he's running everywhere like a marathon runner. And you see Kelly Oubre, that's not his style. His style is let me go and attack, let me go and play, and I'll make a play for you. So I think in terms of that argument, I think that both these guys are just in bad situations. And so I think a swap, obviously, I mean, depending on, I don't remember how much Kelly Oubre is getting, so the contracts don't match up. But if you trade Lonzo and Oubre, because Lonzo's still on that rookie deal, then that trade actually works out pretty fine with me. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't want JJ Redick's contract, but it's probably the sacrifice you have to make in order to get Lonzo. in my
So
opinion.
you're taking old JJ Redick and Lonzo Ball for your Kelly Oubre?
The thing is with Kelly Oubre, he's not doing anything for you on your team on this team. Like he's basically just kind of an average player to me. Like for what the
Dog, he's
Warriors
played
need.
17 games. He's
And
played 17 games.
and Lonzo's paid
And you're
12.
writing him off. No, he hasn't. He's played a whole season with the Pelicans and a half.
But he's not played with Stan Van Gundy. He's played with Alvin Gentry, which you saw that
I'm saying he's played with the same players. The only guy he's lost is Drew Holiday.
But at the same time, he's still not playing in that system with those. Even if he has played with those guys before, they're not going to go away from Stan Van Gundy's system. They're not going to go, all right, forget what Coach Gundy said. We're going to just do what Coach Gentry said. We're going to play this style. Like, you're not doing that. You're listening to what Stan Van Gundy says because that's the style he wants to play. It's the same thing for Kelly Oubre. Like, he's played a completely different style from where he was in Phoenix with Monty Williams to where now he's with Steve Kerr, and Steve Kerr wants him to play this sort of like, try and be a 3-point shooter when that's not his strength. And I think it's the same thing with Lonzo.
He's getting put into a different role. So I agree that Oubre is in a different role, but he's also around brand new teammates, unlike Lonzo. I mean, if you bring in a brand new coach to the Lakers, that chemistry between AD and LeBron is still there. It's always going to be there, regardless of what system you're running, regardless of who's head coach. It always will be there. So that's the advantage that Lonzo has, and Oubre doesn't in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I get that, with Oubre, he's playing, like, with new teammates. But, like, to be honest with you, he's playing with, according to people, one of the best point guards to ever play the position, right? He's playing with
people. Who's people, Bernie? Who's saying this?
I mean, I'm not saying it because I'm a LeBron stan, and you know this. But, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people think that, Steph Curry, obviously Steph Curry is a transcendent player. Like, he's a superstar. He's a multiple NBA champion. Like, there's a difference when you play with that type of guy than when you play with a Zion Williamson who's hyped up to be the next, quote unquote LeBron James because he's like 250, 260, and like 6'5", 6'6". I'll give him 6'6". But you know what I'm saying? Like, Lonzo's not playing with those type of guys. He's not playing with Steph Curry. He's playing with basically, really good players and promising players, potential players. Like, Brandon Ingram is finally, after how many years in LA, after how many years with the Pelicans, he's finally become some sort of a superstar player. Not saying that, I shouldn't say superstar, an all-star player, because I think there is a difference between the two. But it's not like Brandon Ingram's doing much better, with what, I don't know. Like, to be honest with you, I think that, Kelly Oubre is playing with a much better, I would say, team overall than I think Lonzo is with the Pelicans.
I mean, outside of Curry, and I swear, if you say Draymond here, I'm gonna hang up.
Man, I
outside of Curry,
I think you're disrespecting Draymond a little bit if you don't think that he's good, man.
Man, Draymond was good 5 years ago. I'll give you that. Outside of Curry, who's a weapon on the Golden State Warriors that can actually day in and day out come to play and put up 15 plus on you?
I mean, James Wiseman. I mean, he's showing you
that
he's
day in, day out. Not an occasional rookie. I'm 19 years old. I'll dunk on everyone because I'm 7-1. Like, he can do that, but on a day in, day out basis, he can't. Not yet.
I don't know, man. Like, I think James Wiseman's proving people wrong right now. He's proving me wrong. I thought he was going to be like a decent player. Like, obviously, averaging 12 points a game, 5.9 rebounds, 0.6 assists. But I think, he is playing, I would say, with better players. I mean, Steve is, we're looking at an old Steven Adams. We're looking at a broken JJ Redick who would rather do a podcast than shoot threes. We're looking at, Zion Williamson, who's kind of stayed, honestly, he's stayed about the same. He hasn't really progressed the way I would like Zion Williamson to progress. Brandon Ingram,
he's putting up 20 a game. What do you mean?
I mean, I'm not seeing that much. I mean, the offense doesn't look like it. I mean, he could put up 20, but they're still losing.
So we talk about wins and losses, or we talk about which team is actually better? Because if you look at the players on the Golden State Warriors, I'll throw this out there. I'll take Steven Adams today today, I will take Steven Adams over James Wiseman any
Oh
day.
my God!
Right now, I will take that because Steven Adams is a boulder and James Wiseman is a pebble compared to that boulder, size-wise.
Steven
Pause.
Adams is a
But I'm
wannabe
just saying,
Aquaman.
dude, you can't hate on the guy's strength. I mean, the guy's a beast, and you aren't going to move that. And plus, he's developed a nice offensive game. I can respect it. James Wiseman is still a rookie. Still a rookie. Has a lot of room to grow. He's going to be better, way, way better than Adams in the future. But right now, I'll take Adams over him, and I will also take, BI over anybody on that Warriors starting five right now, minus Curry.
I mean, let's think about this though. Like, we're looking at a James Wiseman who's averaging 12 points a game when Steven Adams at his best was averaging about 14. Like, and I think James Wiseman's going to get much better. He's going to probably average 15 a game. Maybe he might even average more. But like Steven Adams right now has probably had his worst year since probably his rookie or second year right now. Like,
dude, look at the last 4 years for Steven Adams. He's putting up on average. You look at the last four on average, what 10, 11, and 10. 10 to 11 points and 10 boards. I mean, you can't complain about that. That's all you need out of your center. He's not going to put up 15, 20 a game for you like Wiseman will when he develops into that. But for right now, shoot, I'll take a 10 and 10 for sure every single night over an occasional 15 and 10 game from Wiseman. The rest is like 8 and 6. That's the only reason why I say that.
I mean, sure, if you want like a wannabe Aquaman that's probably had his time in the sun, 20.
Hey, for the record, I haven't seen Aquaman, so
and if you guys don't know who I'm talking about Jason Momoa, the actor, the guy that played Khal Drogo in Game of Thrones. For my Game of Thrones fans out there, but at the same time, I get what you're saying though about we can agree or disagree with the rosters and Kelly Oubre's role and Lonzo's role. Like, the one thing that I think we both can agree on is that those two guys need a fresh start because obviously their coaches just don't know what to do with those two guys. Like, it seems like Kerr wants to go in a certain direction, but is not, he wants to say like Steph Curry's the guy, we're going to play in his system, while Stan Van Gundy is playing in, I don't even know what you want to call that system. That system is just BI, Zion, try and make a play, everyone else get out the way and be 3-point shooters. Like, it just doesn't work like that for that team. And I think that's the reason why like Brandon Ingram, we all expected like with well, I didn't expect this, but people expected Van Gundy to be in there and to kind of progress his career just like he did with Dwight Howard's. But I just think like for some of these coaches, they need to find themselves in a better situation. Like Tom Thibodeau has found himself in the perfect situation. He's taking a young, promising, well, maybe not promising, but he's taking a young Knicks team and basically making them play out of their mind by like without having any of that superstar ego with any of those guys on the roster. Whereas I feel like Van Gundy has to deal with guys like Brandon Ingram, who obviously wants to be that next superstar player. You have Zion Williamson, who wants to be the next LeBron. And at the end of the day, both those guys, both Lonzo and Kelly Oubre, just need fresh starts. And if you had to pick a team, Logan, where Kelly Oubre could go, where do you think Oubre goes?
So we brought up, New Orleans wouldn't be a bad spot for him. I thought Chicago might be a nice little fit, potentially.
Chicago, okay. Why is that? What do you think about Chicago? You like the Zach LaVine trade?
I mean, it would have to be. I don't know what the trade would be. I just thought he might fit in well there. It was kind of a outside the box type of team, but I thought looking at their starting five, they might be able to use a guy like Oubre.
Yeah, they definitely. The Bulls definitely need something. I mean, they need a point guard because I think Kobe White's too much of a scoring guard. I think that Zach LaVine is too much of a scoring guard. They need a point guard, like someone that's going to be, and maybe Lonzo might be another answer for Chicago.
Lonzo, yeah, definitely could be. I mean, I do like Kobe White, though.
I think I like him as a backup. The way that you like Lonzo as a backup, I think Kobe White is like a backup scoring guard on a team. Because I just think that he's basically just a poor man Zach LaVine, in my opinion. Like for like the Chicago Bulls, like those two guys basically play the same role in terms of what they do.
So how was Kobe White a bench player, but Lonzo Ball? Explain this to me, Bernie.
Explain the Kobe White. I mean, with Kobe
How
White,
how are you gonna put Kobe on the bench? Oh man, but okay, so I'm just looking at their stats. Like Kobe White is performing better than Lonzo is,
I mean, Kobe
and
White's
he's only
playing
been
on
in the
a
league for
project team right now. He's playing on a team that probably needs to, revamp
dude.
their roster.
The Lakers that first year they drafted Lonzo. They weren't a that wasn't a project team with old boy from Golden State who kind of just tied Steve Kerr's shoes for a couple of years and got a head coaching job with LA. What was his name?
Uh, Walton Luke, I think.
Yeah, is he still out in Sacramento or he get fired yet?
No, he's still in Sacramento. He's actually not doing too bad.
Wow.
That team offensively sucks, but I love Fox. I love Halliburton.
Oh, yeah.
I think Tyrese could be like
that's your boy. That's your boy.
That's my boy. I think he could be a rookie of the year candidate.
He will be. He definitely will be. But yeah, no, I just think that Kobe White is in a good spot there. I think they could build off of that. He could score. Zach LaVine is just a bona fide baller, and Laurie Markkinen, he can play too. And if you add OUBRE into that mix when Markkinen is having those off nights, OUBRE can kind of pick that up. I think it'd be a nice little addition.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, we see here that OUBRE can definitely bring some scoring to a team. That he definitely like add some dynamic wing play. And one team that I think could probably use him, and they probably wish that he was on their team again. I know Bradley Beal in the bench today was crying for him. The Washington Wizards, man, they are just, I don't even know what to say, man. Like, you've been watching a couple of the games. You see how Westbrook's been playing. Like, it's been so weird that team has not.
They just need help, man. They need help on and off the court. I don't know what's going on with that team, but it's questionable.
I mean, we even saw today that both him, speaking of Russell Westbrook, him and John Wall got a double T and got ejected from the game. I mean, this is the reason why I always thought that Scotty Brooks was one of the worst coaches. He may have gone to an NBA Finals, but I think that was on the coattails of Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Westbrook, and Serge Ibaka and Jeff Green and that whole roster for the Oklahoma City Thunder. But man, it is, I don't even know what to say about this Scotty Brooks-led Washington Wizards team. I mean, I think Scotty Brooks should be fired immediately. Like, that team right now, at 3-9, when you have Bradley Beal dropping almost 60 points in a game, how can you waste his best years basically with this horrible roster? Like, not saying that the roster is horrible because, like, they have bad players, but because they're not using the players correctly. You have so many young players. You have Danny Avdija, who's a rookie, still trying to grow and develop. You have Raul Neto, who's kind of a bench player. I mean, you got Rui Hachimura, who we have no idea what he is at this point yet. But other than that, and, Russell Westbrook. But Russell Westbrook has honestly, to be honest with you, Logan, he's taken such a downhill regression that it's honestly sad to see like where Westbrook is now at his point of his career to where he was just a couple years back when he won his MVP.
I mean, the thing is he that different? His playing style's the same.
I think he's gotten more selfish with The Rock. I think from like, if we look at his stats and just in terms of like the usage rate and everything like that, like his best year was that Oklahoma City year at age 27 or maybe 28, where he averaged 31.6 points a game. And I believe this is the year that Kevin Durant left, if I'm not mistaken. But what's crazy for me is that even last year in Houston, he was an all-star. And I even felt like that was even a reach because I don't think that, Russell Westbrook has his win shares right now is probably one of the worst in his career right now. A .3 when his career average is 100.8. Like, it has taken such a downhill. His field goal percentage is down. 3-pointers about the same. But I don't know what to make of like Russell Westbrook at this point, because I mean, there was like that point
Bernie,
where
scroll down slightly.
no, we scroll down a little bit to like the whole stats.
Just slightly.
I got you.
I mean, we could see the whole thing except for just the Washington part.
Yeah, I mean, like,
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, like, look at the, like, this is his worst turnovers a game. This is his worst blocks. I mean, blocks, he's not really a shot blocker. One of his worst steals in a season. Like, assists are at 10.6, but that's just because I think he's selfishly getting those assists because he's just trying to feed guys, getting easy buckets. I mean, I think, Chris Paul used to do that back in the Clipper days with DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin, but he's really grown and developed from that. But I mean, I just don't see the same Westbrook that I got even like 2 or 3 years ago. It's a crazy regression at age 32. It's almost, I think, well, to be fair, I think Blake Griffin's was worse, but it's turning into like one of those Blake Griffin type of things where like I'm not seeing the best out of Westbrook.
I mean, is it the win-loss record that's scaring you, Bernie, or is it the 18 points per game? Because outside of those two things, I don't know how much else is different with the guy's game. I mean, he's not like shooting that severely different from what he, is historically shot.
I just think that like his field goal percentage is down almost 10.10%. Like, he shot 47 last year. He's shooting 37 now. Like, for a guy like him, he should be shooting at least 50, which he has historically done, throughout. Well, I guess, around that 45% mark, has historically shot around that point. But this season has just been bad. I mean, 3-point percentage, I'm not expecting Russell Westbrook to be the best 3-point shooter, but I don't know. Like, what's scaring me more is just the fact that his free throws have regressed even more and more. Like, he's shooting 64% when he used to be like a career 80, which is something, which is like, and that's something that we've noticed from when he went to OKC to Houston. Like, it's just gone downhill from there.
But I mean, a guy like Russell, playing his style that he plays at, can you see a drop off coming in his career this severely? Is this real?
I mean, the unfortunate thing about Westbrook is that he's one of those guys that needs his athleticism, just like I think Derrick Rose did, and just even like Allen Iverson did. And when your quickness and your athleticism goes, that is a big problem if that's what you relied on throughout your whole career. We see guys like Chris Paul, he's able to have a long-lasting career because he's more than just, what he was back in the day where he was small and quick and was able to move around the court, where now, he's not as quick and as fast as he once was, but he's still able to make the big plays. And so I think that we're going to see maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, if Russell Westbrook can adapt his game to, his slowing down athleticism, because he's not the same like 26-year-old player that he once was, right? I mean, in NBA years, 32 is like I would say, if you were to compare it to human years, it's like almost being like 42. Like you're getting to that point because he's getting to that point. Like, he takes care of his body. I have no doubt about that. But the way that I think a guy like LeBron James does is like completely different. He's also like a different type of player. And even then, you see that LeBron James has adapted. Like, he's not the same guy, high-flying dunker that he was 10 years ago, but he's adapted his game to where, like, okay, I've developed the 3-point shot. I've developed my turnaround J. Let me be more of an assist man. Let me, be more of a spot-up shooter. And that's how he gets his career to be long and rejuvenated and have such an even long year at year 18, compared to a guy like Russell Westbrook, who right now, he's just kind of teetering on that. Is he going to be the same player if he loses athleticism, or is he going to, be worse, like an Allen Iverson type of player, where one day he's like, a finals, an MVP of the league, to now he's not even, he's dropped and now has to play in China to fulfill his basketball career.
I don't think it'll get to that extreme for Russ.
You think he can adapt?
I think he'll play this style, Bernie, until he retires. And whether that means he retires in the next 3 years, so be it. But I can't see Russell ever just saying that, I need to play as a shooter, a spot up shooter, or strictly a distributor. He's always going to have that dog, I'm a scorer every single time I touch the basket or I touch the ball type of mindset. And if he can adapt, would he really want to play that type of style of basketball that's not as fun, not as exciting? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest question mark for Russell Westbrook. I think is he enter in his what is this like his almost 10 like 11th 12th year if I'm not mistaken. Like he's going to have to start figuring out whether or not like he needs to take that approach of okay, I'm going to be more of a facilitator. I'm going to be more of a more of a shooter than I was in years past because before I was able just to go up and dunk it, but now because it father time is undefeated in sports. Like father time, maybe LeBron James could be the first person to beat father time. Maybe even Tom Brady, whether you like or dislike him. But at the same time, we're seeing where Russell Westbrook has to decide now, which I think it might even be too late for him. Because like you said, he might retire in the next 2 to 3 years. But, it needs to be one of those situations where can he adapt his game to being a scorer by shooting the rock? Can he be just a facilitator at this point? Like in 2 or 3 years, can he just be that? And if he can't be that, then you have to just live with the fact that he's just going to be, we're going to love for what he did in Oklahoma City, especially for what he was able to do, able to progress his career. He played there for so long. Like, I think that's what we're going to need to look at from here on out is, what's his kind of ceiling now at this point. I mean, like, to be honest with you, it's really sad looking at a guy like Blake Griffin, who, was once this high fly number 1 overall pick dunker who could, amaze the LA Clipper crowds when they were Lob City. And now he's getting basically turned like a turntable at a DJ wedding. Like, it's just kind of sad to see like what's happened to him. I don't want the same thing happening to Westbrook. I don't think it will, but I think he's got to decide sooner rather than later what his career path is going to be.
I mean, Blake just has been in Detroit for the last few seasons, and Detroit hasn't done anything since, gosh, they got into the fight with Indiana back when we were like 5. So it's the last time we basically heard Detroit on the news,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So and Blake plays for him, so I don't know what the Motor City is really going to do for Blake, and I'm sure he kind of knew that going into it. Sure, they had Drummond at the time when he joined, and they're supposed to be the big guys in there, but that obviously didn't work out. And Blake also got hurt a few times. So I mean, I don't know if Russell is just in a bad situation or if he's actually regressing as a player, but let's not forget what you pointed out. He did make the All-Star game last year for a reason. And sure, his numbers have regressed, but Washington is also the last place team in the NBA, so he's on the worst team, and he's still, putting up nearly 20 points. That's not that bad. Now, where I do feel bad, though, is for Bradley Beal.
Yep.
And Beal, a lot of people think he's had a wasted career due to Washington. I'd make the argument that Zach LaVine is in a very same situation as Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you there.
Do you see any differences?
I'm trying to remember how Zach got to Chicago. I think was that a trade, or was that a?
Yeah, because he was over in Minnesota.
Yeah, let me see this.
And then wasn't it is it Dunn?
Kendrick Dunn. Let's see here. I'm trying to see here. So,
but looking at their stats, I mean, they were only drafted 2 years apart, and Beal before LaVine, obviously, and the stats are pretty similar. Both going up in points per game each season. Obviously, very similar playing style.
Yeah, I mean, like the thing with me, and I do agree with you, but I think Bradley Beal's had it worse because, Bradley Beal has had to have teammates like John Wall, and that it just didn't work out with that. And I think John Wall needed a breath of fresh air. I think so did and the problem with that is that, like, I think Bradley Beal I think he's a lot better than Zach LaVine, which I know that both guys, his numbers have gone up. Zach LaVine is now a 20-point per game scorer. But I think Bradley Beal is like a walking bucket. Like, if there was a guy that I would need a shot on the line, I'm giving the ball to him each and every time because
100%. I agree.
he's one of those guys that, like, I just haven't seen a scorer like that in so long. And I think that, to be honest with you, there might be a rumor where he might be going to LA. I'm not sure how they're gonna do it. They might have to trade that Kuzma contract, which is why they gave him that sort of little big deal. But to go back to Zach LaVine, he actually was traded in that deal to get Jimmy Butler when he went to Minnesota. Which, now looking at it, they probably want that trade back, just because of the way that Jimmy Butler clowned Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins with some scrubs.
You said Beal had it bad with John Wall as his teammate. How about LaVine having Cat? I mean, it's not the best. And Wiggins. I mean, that was a dumpster fire.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want Wiggins as a teammate. Like, I know I trash on him a lot. I know I clown on him a lot, but I just don't see, like, with Wiggins, with him, it's just like, dude has yet to progress. And to be honest with you, I think, and this might be a little controversial, I think Ben Simmons is on that same trajectory than Andrew Wiggins.
I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong saying that. Same trajectory. That's a safe statement to make.
Safe statement.
It is. That's a very safe statement. It's on the same trajectory. I can 100% agree with you. I think they're very one-dimensional type of players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing with Zach LaVine. I think I want to see what he would actually be like with a player that had, like, basically like a scoring guard, like more of a point forward or like a point guard, where, like, he wasn't the main ball handler coming up the court. Like, he was just a guy that could just basically be a bucket, like Kyrie Irving was for LeBron James at one point. Like, that's where I kind of want to see where he's at. But and also kind of see if he can kind of get the defensive IQ up, because I think defensively he's kind of a struggle bus with it. But I think I would take Bradley Beal over Zach LaVine, in my opinion. Oh, do we get you back, Logan?
Hey, Bernie.
Yep.
Yeah, you got me.
Okay. So basically, I just said I would take Bradley Beal over Zach LaVine.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's hands down, not even a question. But I mean, I do have a question though for Tyrese, who brought up Kemba earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And you, as a Celtics fan, I'm curious your take on this. What do you think about Kemba potentially being the top 5 point guard in the NBA? How hot of a take is that?
You think he's going to be top 5?
I think he is top 5.
You think he's top? Okay, give me your top 5 point guards. I'm actually curious.
So I'm just saying this without really thinking about it, but I could see him being in the top 5.
Okay. I mean, point guards, I think, like, it's just one of those things where, like, whoops, I think I scrolled up too much. I think you're. I think
I
you're
don't
wrong.
think it's that much of a reach saying that. Let's see here.
I mean, if I had to pick top 5,
so you
point
got
guards,
Steph.
Steph, obviously,
you got
in the top.
Lil.
Damian Lillard.
D'Lo. I put Kyrie in there. That's your easily top three.
Okay.
After that, it's really up in the air. I don't think it's that certain by any means after that point.
I don't know, man. I would put Trae Young ahead of him.
I'll say, that's one of those guys, but I mean, Kemba's been doing it a lot longer than Trae has.
If you want to call Luka Doncic a point guard, I put him there too.
I'm not. He's too big. I'm saying
he's too big.
Point guard. He's too big. And no, I'll say I'll give you Trae, but I'm gonna put Kemba over Chris Paul.
What about Westbrook?
You putting him in there? Yeah, I'll put him over Westbrook. I'll put Kemba over Westbrook.
Dang, you put Kemba over Westbrook? I mean, I know he's not having a great season, but
bro, you just ripped him for 5 minutes. How you?
I mean, I can rip him, but he's still a good player.
I'm not saying he's not. I'm not saying he's a bad player by no means. I'm just saying.
What about Ja Morant?
Yeah, that's another guy that you can put up there, but I wouldn't put him top 5 yet. He's only played one season.
Chris Paul, the GOAT? The baby GOAT?
Yeah, 10 years ago.
You don't think he's good right now? Like, you're in Phoenix. You're watching Phoenix. They're looking good.
Yeah, look at his... Come on now. He had 14. He had 14 dimes in the first half, though, the other night. Don't get me wrong. Phoenix is balling. But it's pretty obvious that Chris Paul is no longer a top 5 point guard in the NBA.
I think you're crazy. I think he's still top 5.
I'll put Drew Holiday up there, too, but he can't score as well as Kemba, so I don't think he should really be in that conversation either. I think you got to include Kemba in the top 5. I don't know how you can't.
I think he's top 10, but I don't know about top 5. I think the reason why I say top 10 is because I think there are a couple guys that you could potentially put on that list depending on, if you count LeBron James as a point guard, if you count, Luka Doncic as a point guard, those type of guys I think could be in the conversation for point guard. But, I think you're discrediting Chris Paul, man. I think he's playing like he's another guy that's fighting father time. Like I think with the way that he's playing right now, that there's a reason why Phoenix brought him in and was able and was wanted to take that big contract that he had. Is because I think he's that good.
Chris Paul. He's always gonna ball. He's always gonna ball. He'll go out balling. But right now, today, it's similar to the whole Wiseman versus Adams comparison. I'm gonna take in today's time Kemba Walker versus a 20-something-year-old Walker versus a 30-something-year-old Paul, and that's no question. I get that over the span of his career, Chris Paul has obviously been a first ballot Hall of Fame type of player, but right now I'll take Kemba, and I don't know. I don't see how Kemba is that washed to the point where you can put all these other guys above him.
It's not that he's washed. It's just his knees are made of glass. Like, he's not like...
But Chris Paul's aren't?
Hey, man, Chris Paul's been one of the healthiest guys in the league.
Dude, he just smacked his knee against someone's elbow the other night and just almost shed a tear. I saw it happen, man.
But he's still playing.
The trainer had to come up and cover his face with the towel just to make sure that the cameras didn't. It was bad, man.
I don't know, man. I think you're discrediting Chris Paul and what he's been able to do, man. Like, I understand, right? Now he's not the same Chris Paul that he was back then, where he was scoring almost 20 points a game.
Wait, Bernie, scroll down a little bit. Scroll down. Show us the whole box. Show us how old he actually is. It stops at 33. I know it goes a lot further than that. Come on now.
He's only 35. I think Chris Paul at 35.
And wait, I'm sorry. What is 32 in average people's years? 42. So he's okay. So 35 is really 45. That's what you're saying.
Hey man, but he's playing like Tom Brady right now. The way that he's turning back the clock with his play, man. You can't discredit what Chris Paul's been able to do. Even in year, what is this? I can't even. I'm not good at math. This might be year 15, 16, maybe?
This is 12, 34, 16. Year 16 for the guy.
I mean, year 16. Think about that. And he's still putting up great numbers. Man.
Yeah, he is. He's putting up Lonzo Ball numbers.
Oh, we got P. Lowe in the chat. He's here. What's up, P-Lo? P-Lo says Lonzo to the Knicks. He wanted. What are you thinking? What are you thinking, Logan? You think Peter's crazy for that? You think P-Lo, Pete? You think Pete's crazy for it?
You know, I can't knock that call. But I do think Pilo, it's gonna screw up his head. It's gonna screw up his confidence more than it already is, man. He's gonna have to sit on that bench, and that bench is cold. They don't have They don't have heated benches in New York, so that bench is cold, man. He's gonna come off that bench. His head's not gonna be in the right place. LeVar is gonna be yelling at him, trying to get him to shoot more, and he's still gonna be making 10% of his shots. It's gonna be bad, but hey, that's kind of the Knicks for you, right? So he might fit right in.
Hey, he'll have some big baller Tims that he'll sport. He'll sport out there on the court. If he moves to the Knicks, look out for those big baller Tims.
Lonzo should have retired after he got balled up by his brother earlier on this year. That probably was a low point in his life.
I don't know, man. I still think he can make a career recovery. That career just needs resuscitation, and Van Gundy's not the coach to do it. But if we go back to the kind of Chris Paul argument, talking about that, chat, let me know in the live chat or in the comment section. Are you taking Lonzo? Are you taking Chris Paul, or are you taking Kemba Walker? Let me know.
In today's NBA, not overall, in today's NBA.
I'm still taking. I mean, let's even look at Kemba Walker's stats. I know he hasn't played this year because he's been hurt, but man, if we look at his stats, I mean, I understand that like in this season, only playing 4 games, he's averaging 17. Like he's a guy that averages 20-something points per game. But man, it is I don't know, like assists per game, he's a scoring guard. Like Kemba Walker's more of a scoring guard than I would say a point guard. And right now I think the Celtics, they obviously, like I said, they need a big man first and foremost, but at this point of his career, I mean, I don't know if I can rely on Kemba Walker after, Charlotte was basically took out his knees with the way that they had him basically play and grind those knees to the bone, and then basically kind of ship him off.
A bit, Bernie. All right, there we go. Now we can. All right, so, oh man, this guy is killing it. What do you mean?
He's only played 4 games.
Okay, and Oubre's played 15. What do you mean here?
Now we're going back to Oubre. Now we're going back to
Oubre.
Yeah,
because you're making the same arguments. I mean, come on now. I said the same thing about Oubre, and you said, it's so what? It don't matter. You can't say the same thing about Kemba.
Okay, there's a difference.
There's a
difference.
56.
Yeah, 56, and then in the bubble, he was non-existent. That dude was getting cooked. Jimmy Butler was taking that guy to lunch. Jimmy Butler was having that guy for lunch. If he was like, who I want, I'll take the Kemba Walker. I'll take the Kemba Walker with the side of Daniel Theis. Like that's what Jimmy Butler was doing in the playoffs. Like he wasn't like, I'll take Jaylen Brown. I'll take a Tate. No, he was taking a full bunch of Kemba
Bernie,
Walker in the post.
Show me where on this chart you see the line that says NBA bubble stats 2020. I don't see that on there anywhere.
Let me see if I can find bubble stats somewhere.
Oh, you want to look at the bubble stats? All right.
There we go. Bubble stats.
Lonzo Ball should have been an all-star after looking at the bubble stats, man. Get out of here.
Let's see the bubble stats. No, this is like record. I need like bubble stats.
Does this year still count as a bubble, being that, there's still no fans?
No, because I think they're shooting like in an arena. They're used to this environment. Like obviously without fans, it's a different like scenario, different environment. But they're still playing in like their usual place. They're not playing in like, they're not playing in like Orlando, like what people would call the Mickey Mouse Club in Orlando, right? And they don't, they're basically, it's just one of those things. But we got a couple things from our people in the chat. Lonzo to the Knicks. What's up, my brother? I'd love Lonzo on the Knicks. Bump Peyton off the team for an easy deal. Peyton's such a bum. Lonzo plays strictly pass first with quickly at the 2. Very nice. Pilo also said,
is that Alfred Payton?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is a bum.
I think all their, I mean, actually, Quickly's pretty good, but they've drafted some pretty, I would say, god awful guards at this point. Obi Toppin's actually looking like a decent player for them. And then Pilo says, "I'm in love with bubble stats, truest reflection of the mental game." Gabby says they don't have to stay in a hotel, so no bubble. So she's basically saying that it's not the same as the bubble, I think is what she's trying to say.
I mean, just because they didn't stay in a hotel, though, I don't know. Like, it's a very
Like,
the
do you think
mental
they're in a bubble?
aspect to it is tough. I think they still are in a bubble in a lot of ways. Sure, they get to see their families, they get to go home still, but like
They get the Badussi?
I don't know how much Badussi they're really getting because they got some pretty strict rules going on.
I mean,
So,
I mean, James Harden's willing to break them. And then Gabby says, "Don't argue with me."
you want to jump on here? You want to jump on here? Let's talk about it. Come on, let's talk
she
about
wants
it.
to fight. She wants
She wants to smoke.
she wants the smoke. But this ain't the free smoke podcast. But to kind of summarize the podcast before we head out of here, I should say the daily stream. Obviously today on the 26th of January, we're obviously remembering Kobe Bryant, and the way that obviously the terrible helicopter crash. Obviously, it was probably, for you, Logan, I'm sure it's the same way. Like, it was unexpected, it was shocking, and I think it left a lot of people basically stunned at what happened, and many people saying like, no, this can't be real. Maybe talk about a little bit about what did Kobe Bryant mean to you, whether you loved him or hated him. Like, what did the Black Mamba mean to you, Logan?
Black Mamba, gosh, that's a great question. Black Mamba definitely represented to me adversity. That was the first example I've ever seen publicly with my own eye of somebody being, in other words, universally or domestically hated in this country. And to see how far we've come towards growing to understand who Kobe is, who he was, and who he had become, that was the coolest thing because I went to Sonics games. Every time he touched that basketball, he was booed louder than I ever heard at any Seahawks game. He was hated at the time. Now, when I went to go see him when I was older play, completely different atmosphere. People cheered for him. People loved him wearing opposing teams' jerseys. And it was just a very full circle thing for me to see. And, now looking back on it, to witness somebody go from being the most hated to the most loved just speaks volumes to what can change within a person and how, the perception of somebody can be changed drastically across a huge amount of people. Very inspirational man. And, I think, like you said, we're all going to remember where we were at when we heard the news. And it was a very sad day for us all. But it also brought a lot of us together in thinking how blessed we were to have a guy like that, to be able to grow up and watch him. Tremendous athlete and obviously excellent off of the court as well. So definitely going to be missed.
Yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, I remember, I think me and my girlfriend were actually getting sushi at the time or something like that. And, we were out and all of a sudden you see like breaking news, Kobe Bryant's helicopter crashed and, his daughter was aboard on that, which, you never want to bury your kids as you become older. We're getting to that age at this point, but you know what I mean? Like, it would be like weird if our parents had to bury us. And so, I do feel for Vanessa Bryant in that aspect of, what she has to go through. But just like you, I think, when I think about Kobe Bryant, I just think of that Mamba mentality. I think of, when I was in college and when I was at, working for the football team, when I'm even working now. Gabby said we knew before, but we went to dinner that night and it was all over the TVs. Wasn't too fun of a dinner. Yeah, you were right. Now I remember. Now I'm starting to remember it a little bit. But yeah, just kind of. Yeah, what up, Josh? What up, Jabberwocky? How you doing, man?
What's going on, Barley?
But yeah, I just remember like the situation that was there. I mean, like I said, it was the first time where, I heard the Mamba mentality, and actually, like, I heard that word before, and I was thinking, what is this Mamba mentality? But I watched a video on it. I heard Kobe Bryant talk about it. Um, it was Ole. Sorry, I had to do that. I'm sorry, guys. But it was one of those things where, like, he talked about, like, there's always someone out there working harder than you. So what's your mentality? Are you going to be a guy that, or are you going to be a guy or gal that just kind of chills on the sideline and is just happy with things? Or are you going to be someone that goes out there and gets after it? And that's one of those things where you look at it and it's just, you really get inspired by him. And it's something that I remember, when I got my job interview for this job that I work at for the high school, like that's what I said. I said, this is the Mamba mentality. Like, there's always someone out there working harder than you. There's always someone going to be out there doing this. So why not let that person be you? The person that's working harder, the one that is doing the extra work. Yeah, you might not get paid. Yeah, you might not be doing this or that, but it's just the work and the kind of dedication and grind. It's kind of something that I want to bring to this channel. And I'm appreciative of you, Logan, that is someone who's dedicated as well. And someone, along with, my friend Pete, Brad, who comes on the channel occasionally, Sean, even sometimes, just kind of wanted to build this community, build something where we can have NBA discussion, talk about the different things in basketball going on right now, talking about LeBron James and all these other athletes, these amazing athletes. And so, just to kind of cut a short story short, a long story short, I should say, is, I do appreciate everything that he's done for kind of the mentality and changing it for myself. And just as a player, man, like, yeah, I was a Utah Jazz fan. Yeah, I was a Boston Celtics fan. And I didn't like Kobe Bryant because, he beat the Jazz when they had that memorable core, Darren Williams and Carlos Boozer team. Yeah, he did beat my Celtics twice in the NBA Finals. But man, he was still a fun player to watch. Like, just watching those Christmas games, rewatching the 81-point game, he was an amazing guy, and I'm even wearing his shirt today, kind of showing right there. So he'll be gone but not forgotten. So we want to say rest in peace to the Black Mamba, and I think, like you would say, Logan, like he was on his trajectory path after basketball to be even greater, to help his daughter. I think he actually was the perfect guy to be the ambassador for the WNBA and women's basketball and trying to get that stuff going. And so I think that actually would be, it's sad to see that they lost a guy like that. And also, with all these players that like look up to him, with the Jason Tatum, even though I'm not agreeing with the shot selection, learning from the Black Mamba, I think that's something that we could also take away from that as well.
Yeah, we see, like you said, we see his legacy within so many current NBA stars today. So, to think that Black Mamba will ever be forgotten is just, you can't even fathom it. And good thing you brought up Gigi, another great talent that we lost, and she was about to do great things. And the way Kobe inspires people is so special and unique, and every single individual who really is impacted by his mentality, that Mamba mentality. So, we're just along for the ride, Bernie. I appreciate you inviting us to be a part of this and allowing us to support you. And this is fun as heck for me, man. I love doing this. So whenever you want to do it, man, you just let me know, and appreciate you.
Yeah, for sure, man. And also, I also want to bring up as well, to the other family members that died on that helicopter crash too. We can't forget about them. They were all going to the same basketball game together. So, it sucks to see that we also lost a couple more lives as well because of an unfortunate accident. But yeah, man, I mean, anytime, whether you, Brad, P. Lowe, anybody else that's involved in the channel, if you ever want to hop on, just hop on the Discord. I'll send you an invite and we'll talk some hoops, man, because I do love this conversational stuff, whether it's in the chat with Tyrese, Eoy, Supreme Gamer, Gabby, Josh, Pilo, like I said, whether you're on the show or not. I love talking hoops, and even Logan, when you're in the chat as well, I love talking hoops. I love just talking basketball. So, at the end of the day, again, thank you to Kobe Bryant for inspiring a lot of us to be our very best. And rest in peace, Black Mamba. And before we go, Logan, is there anything you want to say to the audience out there before we sign out of here?
Oh man, a couple things. Big shout out to Josh Jabberwocky out there. Good to see you, dog. Sean P, I know you'll be watching later. What's up? Gabby, always a pleasure. And anybody else that I miss? Hopefully, I'll be able to talk to Eoy and Tyrese at some point, man. I know I've seen you all up in the chat, so hope to talk to all y'all again more.
Yeah, for sure, man. It's definitely a fun ride. Obviously, you know, we're growing our way. We're trying to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. That's the goal for 2021. Get to that 1,000 subscriber mark, and then eventually we'll work on that 10K, 100K, you know, 1 mil at some point. But you know, got to start out small to work our way out big. But anyway, guys, thank you once again for joining me here on The Charge, along with my good friend Lay, or AKA Logan. Thank you once again for joining me.
Of course, guys. Hey, dude, appreciate you having me, and always a pleasure, man. Had a blast.
For sure. And again, guys, remember to hit that like button. Also, remember to hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel to make sure that you don't miss our NBA content. Of course, we're streaming Monday through Friday with occasional weekend streams depending on the situation at hand. You know, if there's a big playoff game or if there's other things to kind of talk about, you know, really late breaking news or something that's crazy to talk about, we'll definitely talk about it. One thing I also want to mention too, Caris LeVert, you know, got the treatment, was able to get the cancerous stuff out of his kidneys. So really happy about that for him. Or if I let him, all right, whatever. But anyway, guys, like I said, let me know in the comment section down below, what did you guys make of our stories here? We talked about Lonzo Ball. We talked about Kelly Oubre. We talked about Kemba Walker. We talked about Zach LaVine. We talked about Bradley Beal. Let us know in the comment section down below, what did you guys make of the stuff that we talked about today? Of course, the big ones being the Kelly Oubre trade block rumors and also the Lonzo Ball officially.
And don't sleep on my boy Kemba. Don't sleep on my boy Kemba.
Don't sleep on Kemba. And, you know, of course, we talked about Lonzo Ball being on the trade block as well. But anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. Logan, thank you once again for joining, and we'll catch you
Appreciate it for me
on the next episode. Peace, guys.